For the last installment on Keep on Reviewing for Exam, we want to pick up with question number 15. So, in this question, you buy a car for $12,500. It depreciates at a rate of 12% annually. How much will your car be worth after 4 years? This formula is on the formula sheet that you will have for the exam. So the things you have to remember, this little a refers to the starting amount. This is what you begin with. The R is the rate that it increases or decreases, the percentage. And the T is time. How many years will it be doing this? And so in this example, we're trying to figure out how much the car will be worth after 4 years. So we want to know the amount after T is 4 years. Well, how much did it start out? It started at 12,500. Then we put the 1, but now this one, it depreciates at a rate of 12%. And so as I think, is that increasing or decreasing in value? Depreciating is becoming less, a smaller value. So we need to subtract the rate. If it's increasing like a bank account, then we would add the percentage. But here it's depreciating, and so we had to change the percent into a decimal. So we're going to subtract 0.12. And then T is the number of years. How much will it be worth after 4 years? So we take out the calculator. And we want to type in 12,500 times 1 minus 0.12 . And then this is to the 4th power. So right above the division sign is the caret to make it to the 4th power. Hit enter. And so after 4 years will be $7,496 and to the nearest cent, 19 cents. So the car will be worth, after 4 years, $7,496 and 19 cents. Number 16. This notation means the inverse of f of x. So to find inverse, that's where we need to switch the x and the y around. So if you think of this as y equals 1/2 x minus 5, to find the inverse, we switch the position of the x and the y. So x equals 1/2 y minus 5. And now we solve for this new y. So I'm going to add the 5 over to the other side. X plus 5 equals 1/2 y. Now the opposite of multiplying by 1/2 is to multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction. So multiplying by 2. Taking half of something is like dividing it by 2. And the opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. So I want to multiply the x plus 5 times 2. And when I multiply the 1/2 y times 2, those 2's will cancel each other. And so I can either leave it in this form or I can distribute 2x plus 10 equals y. So notation wise, the inverse of f of x equals 2x plus 10. As a side note, there's two ways we can kind of check these. If you remember, we could do the composition of a function with its inverse and say what happens if you put 2x plus 10 into the other function. So instead of 1/2 x, 1/2 times 2x plus 10 minus 5. And when we do that, distributing the 1/2, taking half of 2x and half of 10, 5 minus 5 is 0. And so if your composition is equal to x, then you know that these two functions are inverses of each other. The other thing to note is that if you graph these two, go to y equals, and I want to graph 1/2 x minus 5, and I want to graph the inverse that I found, 2x plus 10. And if I graph those two, what should happen is that these two are reflections of each other across the line y equals x. And notice how they're the same distance across from each other. If you do a zoom and do the fifth option, zoom square, it makes it so that you can see that the reflections across that line, across the line y equals x. Alright, back to the task at hand. Number 17. There are 85 entries for a classic car show. Each car will be judged and 5 will be chosen to be displayed in the highlight circle and used for publicity pictures. How many possible ways are there for the highlight circle to be chosen? So there's 85 to choose from, and we need 5 to be chosen. 5 are going to be chosen for the highlight circle. Doesn't matter the order that they're chosen, that they're judged. Nope, all 5 of them are going to get their publicity pictures, will be part of the highlight circle, so it doesn't matter whether you're first or fifth. And so if the order doesn't matter, that means that it is a combination. And so we have 85 cars to choose from, and 5 of them will be selected for the highlight circle. Remember, if the order matters, we use a permutation. And so for a combination, if we check our reference sheet, it's the first number factorial over the second number factorial times first minus second number factorial. So this is the same thing as saying 85 factorial, which is a really big number, over 5 factorial times 85 minus 5 factorial. And so on the calculator, you can find this under the probability menu, the PRB. And so if the numbers are too big, so we can try to type it in and say, let's see, on top I've got 85 factorial. So on this calculator I go to the math menu, and then I go across the top to probability, and the fourth option gives me the factorial. And I want to divide that by, and then use parentheses because I've got to multiply these two together first. 5, math menu, across to probability, fourth option, times an 85 minus 5 I know is 80 factorial. So math over to probability, fourth option, close parenthesis. And I hit enter, and it gives me an error because this numbers were just too big. But the calculator, if it doesn't allow me to do that, it might allow me to just type it in directly with the combination 85C5. And so if I try that option here, so I type in the 85, then in the math menu over to probability, this is a combination. So the third option, NCR, on the yellow calculators, I can't remember if it's the first or second option, but the NCR, select it, and then the R value is 5. So 85C5. And when I hit enter for that, it's able to do those calculations. And so my answer here is that there are 32,801,517 ways to select 5 cars out of the 85 to be in the highlight circle. Right? Number 18. You are playing a game that requires that you roll a standard number cube, meaning that there are 6 sides, and spin a spinner that is evenly marked off with letters A, B, C, and D. So the spinner has 4 options. I think you got your spinner. Well, this spinner is divided into 4 equal parts: A, B, C, D. Sorry, those were off the screen initially as I was drawing. So that spinner has 4 equal sections. Okay, so the probability that I roll a 4 and I spin an A, spin and land on A. Well, the probability of 2 events that we want both of them to happen, and they're independent. So the probability that I roll a 4 is going to get multiplied by the probability that I spin and land on A. So probability of rolling a 4, there's one side that has a 4 out of the 6 sides. Probability that I land on A, there's one section that has an A. There are 4 total sections. And so in this situation I'm using my theoretical probabilities. 1/6 times 1/4, multiply the top numbers together, multiply the bottom numbers together, 1/24. We could change that into decimals and percents as well. Okay, probability of getting an even number and landing on C. How many even numbers there are on a standard number cube? Well, numbers 2, 4, and 6. There are 3 even numbers out of the 6. How many ways can I land on C? Well, there's 1 way out of the 4 possible options. And so I multiply 3 times 1 and 6 times 4. And that one can reduce. 3 and 24 can both be divided by 3. So 1/8 of the time I'll get an even number and land on C. And the last question, probability of getting a number less than 3, meaning 1 or 2, and not a vowel. So not A, E, I, O, or U, Well, the only one that's on the spinner is A. So that means I could have B, C, or D. So probability of getting less than 3, 2 out of the 6 ways are less than 3. Probability of getting not a vowel, 3 out of the 4 spaces on the spinner. And so as I multiply these together, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 4 is 24, and 6 and 24 can both be divided by 6. So 1/4 of the time I'll get a number less than 3 and not a vowel. Right, so hopefully you can use these ideas to help you with the semester exam review sheet that you need to make sure that you complete the odd number problems on. And feel free to send me an email with questions or send an email asking to be signed up for SRT in the resource room if that would be helpful. I can also stay after school to work with you if that would be helpful. Good luck and happy studying. Thanks.